Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of AYP Live, where we bring you real talk from real people who've been there, done that, and have the stories to prove it. I'm your host, Ross Jolly, and thanks for joining me as always. Great to have you here. So before I introduce this afternoon's guest, please feel free to comment, say hello, and let me know that we're definitely live across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. So today, I'm really excited to introduce our latest guest, Lee Donald. She's not just an award-winning personal trainer and business owner, she was the 7th female from Scotland to climb Everest and is now preparing to be the first Scot to climb K2, arguably the world's most dangerous mountain. So Lee continues to push boundaries that I think most of us are only dreaming of approaching. Having visited our website as part of the preparation for today's interview, Lee is a multi-award winning personal trainer and business owner. And our aim is to help women lose weight, get fitter and feel happier without having to diet or join a gym. That sounds great, doesn't it? So but we're going to hear from Lee about her personal battles and how she's managed to come out the other side, physically and mentally stronger than ever. So whether you're building a career, starting a business, or just trying to figure out your next move, Lee's journey has something to say to you. So without further ado, that's enough from me. Let's welcome Lee to the show.
Hi, Ross.
How are you?
Yeah, that was a great intro. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thanks for joining us today from like a sunny Aberdeen. So I've actually had to close the blinds today, so it makes a change. No, I mean it's great to have you on, Lee. And I just would really kind of start off with the kind of origins of your business and your early influences. What kind of made you first pursue a career in fitness and personal training?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, it was actually my granny.
Okay.
I was 28, 29, bit of a bit stuck in my life, didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, per se. And I went out to my grandparents, and she had cut out from the newspaper, as grandparents do, and said, "Oh, here, we think me and your grandfather think that, you would be good at this." So I was like, "Oh, how to become a personal trainer." So I did a bit of research and thought, exercise, teaching. I'd always kind of done that anyway. I was a water sports instructor in the south of France when I was 18, 19. I'd been an adventurous activity residential care worker with kids in care. So it kind of fitted that profile. So, okay. And before I knew it, I was on a 6-week intensive course down in Glasgow at the time because they didn't actually run anything in Aberdeen. So that's how it all kicked off.
So I mean, you've been very open about your own challenges. I mean, how did those experiences shape your drive to launch Lee Donald Personal Training?
I'm not sure if it was my drive to launch it. I mean, in fact, when I qualified as a personal trainer in 2011, I was on the cusp of overcoming my 15-year eating disorder, my alcohol addiction, depression. I had done the work to get in as good a place as I could, but I hadn't quite got there. And actually, when I started my business by helping others, it was helping me. And that was, a big, turnaround in my life is starting my own business. And what it did was help me understand where my clients were coming from, because a lot of them had bad relationships with food, or maybe drank too much, or, not much self-worth, or feeling depressed, etc. So it wasn't that it drove me to launch it, but it just enabled me to do my job a whole lot better.
Yeah. So, I mean, was there like a light bulb moment where you kind of thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own business?
Yes and no. It was kind of involuntary, but I'd qualified. I had got offered 2 jobs by 2 different gyms, which sounds great. But when I was looking at kind of, let's say, the small print of, how it all worked, I was like, oh God, I don't like the sound of that. And I'd actually, even though I'd always been active, I'd never been a fan of the gym. So I'm thinking, what were you doing, Lee? You're now a PT. What are you going to do? So that's like, okay, I'm going to have to start my own business. And yeah, that is what I did. And in fact, my business will be 14 years old next Monday. 26th of May was when I had my very first client. Wow. I started with no clients, no money, no kit, no premises. I was back with my mum because, I was starting this new career. So it really was started from scratch.
I'm always interested to hear from like entrepreneurs. What did the early days of their company look like? So what was the early days of LDPT? What did it look like? Was it just like yourself, a few clients, some dumbbells, and a dream, an aspiration?
Yeah, there was a lot of learning. So it started with my cousin's boss being my first client.
Okay.
And, getting equipment for my birthday and for my Christmases
Mhm.
and building, my kind of equipment up. But yeah, a lot of learning. I was proactive. I got myself on business gateway courses. I started following people on social media. But to be fair, back then, social media was not what it is today. When I was marketing myself and my business, it was Gumtree. There was me and maybe one or two other personal trainers on Gumtree in Aberdeen, and that was it. And now it's obviously, blown up. So yeah, I learned a lot about program making, running a business. I discovered the 1% Club, which has really served me well, which for those people that don't know, being part of the 1% Club, if you want to be at the top of your game, the top of your field and be really successful, you have to be willing to do what 99% of others aren't willing to do. And I was like, right, I want to be successful. I want to be the top of my game. That is what I'm going to do. So there was a lot of work. And yeah, it was pretty solo, to be honest, because I didn't work in a gym. I didn't have the support or the banter or, being able to chat with other personal trainers or anything. So it was quite a lonely time, but it took off really quickly because I started in May and by December I was burnt out.
Yeah.
I just thought I had to train everyone and anyone who asked me.
I think that follows on to my kind of next question I was going to ask you, Lee. You mentioned about being burnt out there. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people speak about their support network. So, I mean, who kind of supported you most at the beginning? Or did you feel like you had to build this alone?
Essentially, I had to build it alone, but my family were very supportive. They got a lot of free PT sessions and class trials, so I was using them to help, obviously, develop, what I was doing. So it was great to have them and ask them, what did you think of that? What could I do better? What did I do well? So that was really key when I was kicking off.
Good. And what do you think? I mean, I know that when I've spoke to other young entrepreneurs, they find about turning their passion into full blown business can be difficult. So, what was the hardest thing that you found about turning your passion into a full blown business?
Um, it's just learning so much because when you are an entrepreneur, you wear all the hats, right?
Mhm.
You are the marketer, you're the email writer, you're the social media guru, you are, making the programs, you are, you know, giving the programs, you're doing the accounts. So there was just a lot of stuff to kind of take on. But I think perhaps because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I've got a bit of OCD, is that I just wanted to make sure that I did things as well as I possibly could. So it actually served me well. And again, going back to the mindset of being in the 1% Club, I was like,
Yeah.
right, well, if I want to be successful, I have to learn this. I have to get better at this. Right.
Mhm.
How am I going to do that? Well, I signed up for courses. I learned from others and, made mistakes along the way, which is part of the process.
Yeah. Because I mean, you work in quite a crowded industry. I think it's pretty fair to
It
say.
is now.
Yeah, it is now. Probably more so with the advent and the development of social media. What advice would you give someone trying to build a brand that stands out in a crowded industry?
Yeah, it is really difficult. There's a lot of personal trainers, and it's thinking outside the box. And for me, I put a big emphasis on building a community. There's no better recommendation than word of mouth. And I do things like organize. In fact, we've got a team social event this weekend. I run an Easter event, a summer barbecue. Christmas night. My clients, they get a bottle of water. They towel, they get a welcome card. It's thinking outside the box of how you can, do things a bit differently and getting across your message as well and sticking by that. So for me, I'm about helping women, which is a niche. It's about not being in a gym and not having to be on a diet. So it's very specific. So the more specific you can be with your niche and who you're targeting, the better you'll be able to market yourself.
I'm not sure if we've lost the sound a little bit with you, Lee.
Yeah, I've got an incoming call. Actually, let's get rid of that. Is that what
That's
it
it.
was? Is it
There we are. We're back.
because I was getting a phone call? I was trying to ignore that there.
There we go. No problem.
I don't know what you heard there.
I think I just didn't. I didn't get the last sort of minute of that one, but
I was speaking about a niche. So when you for me, so I train women. They are busy women who don't want to join a gym. They're fed up of yo-yo dieting. It's as specific as it can be. So when you know your avatar, your clientele that you want, and you hone in on it, it means that your marketing's much better because you're speaking directly to them. So in essence, it helps you kind of sieve through the noise so that you have your ideal client that you're talking to and you're able to market better.
Mm-hmm. So obviously doing a little bit of research before as I alluded to, the opening there. You've won some pretty major awards and all. So what do those like recognitions mean to you, and how do they translate to business credibility in your viewpoint?
Yeah, yeah, sorry, I just got a message up there as well, which has thrown me. So I actually won my 30th award this year, which just kind of blows my mind, even saying that out loud. But winning that award, I get that same total honored feeling as I did when I won my first award. And for me, yeah, it is an incredible byproduct of having a passion of what I do and having a strong work ethic, and then having that recognized is just, incredible. And I think when people see that you win awards, it builds trust. And if people trust you, they're likely to do business with you. So yeah, again, it's amazing, and yeah, really good for business too.
Yeah. So do you think, like, you're obviously alluding to there about the trust element, do you feel that helps build client loyalty? In a world where people kind of probably jump, I think in your line of work, for people
Yeah.
maybe jump from one guru to the next, do you think it's that well, probably quite result driven as well, I'm sure, to see that, the physical effect of what's happened, with the changes in your body and things like that? How do you build that client loyalty?
For me, again, sorry, I had to let my cat in there, which I was trying to keep out.
This is the joy of live.
She was ripping up the new carpet. So yes, my apologies for that. Back in the room. Client loyalty, yeah, definitely, being a trusted business, but going back to that community, right? You build a community, you give people something that they're not just another fitness class member, they're not just another client or part of my online members area, they're valued. And we build that social fitness, that social aspect of it as well, which when people feel a part of something, they're likely to stay.
Yeah, no, because and I think as well, you also just touched on the fact that when you're an entrepreneur, you're one person with many hats. So I think a lot of people don't realize that. You've got the bit that you're really passionate about, then you've got the other bits and pieces you've got to do as well. So how do you kind of manage the less glamorous side, shall we say, of entrepreneurship? Like so the administration, the
Yeah.
media pressures, then the feeling of burnout when you're going, oh gosh, is it all worth it? I mean, how do you manage that?
Routine. So I have set days, I do set things, and I established this quite earlier on, that the days that I make my programs, the days that I prep recipes in the next thing, and having that plan in place means that I'm not feeling overwhelmed thinking, right, I've got to do this and this. I know, right, it's Monday, that's when I write my emails, I write my blog, I do X, Y, and Z. Tuesday I make my programs. So having that in place definitely has helped me. And then taking the pressure off myself as well. I used to feel like I had to post 3 times a day on social media because that's what they tell you that you need to do to succeed. And, I felt that really hard in the beginning, and social media is still kind of a bugbear. I think it's every entrepreneur's bugbear because, yeah, it's quite hard to be seen and get your message out, etc. But I take the pressure off now. Like, I aim to be consistent. I aim to show up every day, at least once a day. But if it happens that I don't post because I'm really busy and stuff's going on and the cats need my attention, then I don't beat myself up for it. Tomorrow's
Yeah.
a new day.
Ah,
So
good.
it's, alleviating that pressure that I used to put on myself.
So you've also got an established business now, Lee. But I mean, was there ever like a moment where you thought, you know what, can't do this anymore? And if there was, what got you through? What got you through?
Absolutely. There has been so many times that there's been hard lessons and you just kind of feel like, but it's going back to that mindset. Well, if I give up, I know where that's going to get me. And it's, yeah, I want to continue to be there for my clients. I want to, turn up and be best for myself. And yeah, it definitely is allowing yourself to feel those emotions,
Yeah.
but not dwelling on them. Looking at what I can control and what I can't control. And on the things that I can control, right, well, what's the next step? And it was the same as on Everest. Right, well, I've done that one. What's the next step? And again, breaking things down into the next step instead of looking things at a whole helps you just get that drive to get out of whatever hole or spiral you have got yourself into.
Brilliant. Now let's switch gears to Everest, shall we?
Okay.
what's well, I mean, what first sparked the idea to take on the world's highest mountain?
I've always been fascinated by it. It has been literally a lifelong dream since I was a kid. I was very lucky when I was younger. My mum would take us, me and my sister, I got a big sister, on ski holidays. And, being in the mountains around the snow was my happy place. And here was, Everest, the mountain of all mountains. So it instantly captivated my attention. I thought, wow, I'd always loved to climb that. And I spoke about it, quite often. And it became a turning point in my life. There's a lot going on in my personal life. I just turned 40, but it wasn't a midlife crisis. And it came to a point where it was now or never. I was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah, I chose now, which meant that I knew, again, for personal reasons, that I wanted to summit in 2024. So this was the end of 2022 that I decided this, having only summited one Monroe. So I was like, right, okay, I need to figure out how to become this person to climb Everest within a year. So yeah, reverse engineered, right, what do I need to do? So in February, end of February 2023 was an insane year. I kicked off with a winter skills course on the West Coast, learned all the basic mountaineering skills. I then needed to go to high altitude. So I summited Mont Blanc, which is the highest peak in Western Europe, Gran Paradiso, the highest peak in Italy. I went to Ecuador, did 5 high altitude volcanoes there. In between, going to Lanzarote with my friends, going on a ski holiday with my mom, trying to spend time with my kids, run my business. It was a lot, but obviously paid off. So yeah, it was a turning point in my life that kicked it all off.
Because a lot of people, I've seen it on TV documentaries, etc. Dream about Everest, but few actually do it. So what pushed you beyond the dreaming stage and going, you know what, I'm going to do it?
I think it was the feeling of regret is far worse than putting in the work to make something happen. I did not want to be sitting in, rocking in a rocking chair when I'm 8 years old. Oh, I wish I'd always done that. It's always been a lifelong dream, but I just didn't. That feeling of regret is awful. So well, you know what, Lee, put in the work, make it happen. Back your chat, which is, a kind of motto of mine. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I just get laser focused on that goal. And that's what I did.
Brilliant. Well, I've got some pictures to share for my next question I was going to ask you. I was wanting to maybe see if you could talk us through a day on the mountain and what that actually looks like. So I'll just change the format here and I'll start sharing the pictures.
The day on the mountain really varies. So that was in the Khumbu Glacier, practicing crossing crevasses on ladders. I've got crampons there, which are, metal spiky things on the bottom of your feet. So it's really not easy, but you need to train to do that, figure out your technique before you actually, go into what's called the Khumbu Icefall.
Brilliant.
So there's a lot of training. There's 30 to 40 days training before, and acclimatizing before you go up. So that's from Pomori. So just to the kind of top right of me is Everest. That kind of glacial bit going up, that is the Khumbu Icefall. There's another couple of big peaks to the side, but that was climbing the mountain opposite to acclimatize, put in some training. So yeah, it was stunning looking at very hard work.
Yeah,
you can maybe see it. So base camp, I don't know, some people are surprised about what base camp looks like, but if you look just kind of below what this is kind of the bluey line, I can't really point, but those are little tents. Yeah, that's base camp. It's a mile long. And luckily for us, I was with a company called Climb the Seven Summits that was just right where we needed to go up. So yeah, it made our training days shorter.
I think it's the next picture that gives me the fear, I think, is this one here.
Yeah, so we again had to practice going up steep terrain, steep icy terrain, and using our crampons, those spiky bits on our feet to pull ourselves up, and use something what's called a jumar. as well, which is what you use to get up Everest, which is basically something that you hold. It freely goes up and then it sticks. So that then helps pull you up the mountain. So it was getting used.
It's the next picture that gives me more of the fear, I think.
So this is a crevasse. So to cross a crevasse, and there were many in the Khumbu Ice Fall, there was either a small ladder, multiple ladders. You were either at an angle or there was no ladders. Sometimes you just had to jump. So being almost 6 foot, it was advantageous having long legs. But that was my pal Aga, who was a bit shorter than me. This was like one of our first crevasses. It was nighttime and we just had to jump across. Yeah. And I'll add in that I also have a fear of heights. So this was, Everest was hard enough as it is. Never mind having a fear of heights. And I also have exercise-induced bronchoconstriction, which is pretty much the same as asthma. So yeah, that is a picture in the Khumbu. There's just massive blocks of ice everywhere. It moves about 1 meter a day. So it's very unpredictable. A big block of ice the size of a building can take you out at any time. It is the most treacherous part of the whole thing. That is me just getting up a vertical wall, which was incredibly hard. Very thankful. Prior to climbing big mountains, I was an obstacle course racing athlete, so I developed a lot of upper body strength. Because trying to haul yourself up a vertical ice wall when you're at altitude is not easy. But we had a ladder that time. That's my pal Aga, who, was my climbing buddy. So we had a ladder at that point. But yeah, some crevasses are big, some are smaller. And you just got to work your way across them. That was me rocking my Friends of Anchor hat and my t-shirt. I was raising money for Friends of Anchor doing it. That was in the Khumbu Ice Fall. Again, just training, going through it. There's 5 checkpoints and we went up to checkpoint 2 just to get a feel for it before, our summit push. Yeah, that's what you look like when you are trying to protect yourself from the sun. The sun is immense, but also the heat is immense as well. So you need that to protect yourself. But at the same time, it's really hot. People think it's just cold, but during the day, what's called the Western Cone between camps 1 and 2 is insanely hot. So yeah, I've got my face covered to prevent burning, but I've again got all my clothes on because you start cold and then it gets hot. But yeah.
Just like a day in Aberdeen, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's on what's called the Hillary Step, which is a very famous part between the South Summit and the actual summit. That's where you might see a lot of pictures and a lot of queues. There's a very famous picture of all these queues up there. As you can see, there was hardly anybody, maybe a couple of people up there when I was doing it. But yeah, that was on the descent after I had made the summit. Love that picture, but oh yeah, the memories and what I felt at that point.
almost there.
Yeah, well, actually, no, halfway. When you get to the summit, you are halfway. Yeah, so that was us, descending. Very happy to be descending. Yeah, that was Everest ER, which sounds really cool, but it's not. After my first rotation, which basically means going through some of the camps to acclimatize and coming back down, I got rhinitis, which is inflammation of your airways, which basically meant every breath that I took felt like razors. And when you consider that you're breathing at least 2-3 times faster than you are at sea level, it was absolute agony. It was a crucial point that if I did not get better within 24 hours, which not many people do at high altitude at base camp, I would have to descend. It was almost game over. So yeah, as great as it is seeing Everest CR, yeah, it's not the best memories.
Yeah, because I think we'll talk about your challenges there as well pretty soon. But what were there kind of? I mean, that was obviously we've going to touch on that just now. But the main moments where you thought you weren't going to make it and what kind of pulled you through. And I mean, I've got some pictures that you had shared with me as well, which I'll share with the viewers just now. Go put them up on the screen. Just give me just 2 seconds.
I mean, I was really sick. I had a temperature of over 100. I felt absolutely awful, and it was I mean that was when I was feeling better than what you actually. I don't know if I was. I wasn't poorly then. So that is at camp 4. So that's the last camp in what's called the death zone. which is an area about 8,000 meters and above, where your body is literally dying cell by cell. There's not enough oxygen in the air to sustain human life for any length of time. So yeah, that's me as well. So that's my Everest kisses. I came back with a bit of frostbite on my face. It was really hard going. Whilst the summit pictures look funny, it was very windy and very cold, and the wind was just biting into my face. And I still have, which I can cover with makeup, but a little Everest kiss underneath my eye. Yeah, and that was my meds, as well as they could, to give me for my rhinitis, which was a bit of Vaseline to soften the airways, a spray and some saline, and that was a mask to try and keep the cold off my airways, but it was too hard to wear. So yeah, I'm very fortunate. By a miracle, I managed to pull it around, because not many people, in fact, nobody really gets better base camp. So somebody was looking out for me. But
it's quite scary when you see it like that, though. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
It also, when I got sick, so the odds were massively stacked against me. I had skipped what's called my second rotation, which is basically going higher up through the camps to be able to acclimatize, which is very, very important. Because I got sick, I shot straight for the summit after only one rotation, which carried its own risk in itself. But the fact that I had exercise-induced asthma, the risks were even more sky high. And the fact that when I got sick, it was only 8 days after I was on my summit push. So in hindsight, as soon as I started, my instant reaction was, uh-oh. I was like, I'm not better. What am I going to do? And I had this internal battle with myself. Do I turn around or not turn around? No, just keep going. Again, one step at a time. Forget the summit. Let's see if I can get through the Kumba. Let's see if I can get to count one. And it was by far the hardest thing I've done, by a million miles, mentally and physically. To keep pushing when you're in so much pain and suffering and can't breathe. That was my biggest challenge, breathing, getting a breath. Yes.
Scary stuff.
Very scary, on paper, I shouldn't have made it, but, I did. So very thankful for that.
So do you think, Lee, that your fitness background probably gave you like an edge, and what do you think it didn't prepare you for? The opposite side of that.
It definitely helped, because my base level of fitness was more than what maybe your average Joe's, but then your average Joe will sometimes spend like years training for Everest, whereas I fast tracked it in a year. But it definitely enabled me to have a better advantage, because the stronger and the fitter you are, your better your ability to utilize oxygen, which was even more important for me to be able to breathe. So, but that doesn't mean you can be the fittest person in the world, but you might not be able to adapt to altitude. You could be a smoker and adapt better to altitude than someone who's really fit. So that was a bit of Russian roulette. But like I said, being an obstacle course racer, having the upper body strength worked really well for me. I was very thankful for that. But yeah, you need to be in the best shape of your life if you are going to conquer the highest mountain in the world.
And of course, you made it to the summit. So, I mean, what did summiting Everest feel like? Was it relief? Was it joy? Cold? Exhaustion? Mixture of all?
I always describe it as bittersweet. It was sweet because, I mean, the views are there on my blog. They're absolutely incredible. I was purposely trying to take it all in. Yeah, so that was my Friends of Anchor flag at the top, and then just below I was flying this Scottish flag. It was really difficult at that point to take pictures because the sun was coming up. It was kind of darkening. So in the next one where you see me taking a selfie, my phone was black. I had no idea what I was taking a picture of. And it turns out it was a really cool picture. It was hard to even hold my phone. The wind was blowing. Like I said, it looks lovely. The wind was blowing so hard. Like I couldn't even stand up with the flags. It took all my energy to just hold them and not let them fly away. So whilst I was enjoying, I'd done it. I'd made my, dream a reality. This is what it was like to stand at the top of Everest. At the same time, I was beyond exhaustion. I was halfway. I'm well aware that most fatalities happen on the descent. So it was an intense and overwhelming feeling of all these emotions, of positive emotions and negative emotions. It wasn't quite the fist pumping, thing that people think it is. Like, you have spent, it's a week to summit. It takes a week to summit on very little sleep, on next to no oxygen. Like, by the time you get to the top, yeah, it was very emotional.
It was this actual picture here to my daughters as
Yeah.
well. Went, oh, look at the snow there, and I said, that's the clouds.
That is that, and that's really high
I said,
mountains
that's how
as
high.
well. And it was at a point when I was on the South Summit that the sun was just beginning to come up that I actually saw what was around me, and I saw these massive mountains, but they seemed so low. And whilst it instantly triggered my fear of heights, I was like, oh, but I'm really high. I'm almost at the top. Keep going, Lee. It was a boost at the same time. But yeah, those mountains look tiny, but they are massive.
We've also got one of the videos you shared as well. I'll put that on here just now too.
Don't know if you can hear it. Yeah, I mean, absolutely mind blowing. So you can see the wind blowing the flags.
Yeah.
I say, "Ooh, I think something I've made it." I think say Leah Jackson, which are my kids' names. Mummy Lee made it. But you can't hear that because the wind is blowing so much. But you'll also see that there was actually only 2 other people there at the top, which was incredible. We got the summit to ourselves. I was literally the highest person in the world at that point.
So how long do you actually stay on the top then, Lee? Just
long enough to get a picture,
long enough.
get a video, and get out of there. You will see, some people sitting on the summit and relaxing and chilling because there's no wind in all this. So I would say maybe 10 minutes. So you're in the death zone, right? You are a ticking time bomb, so essentially, yeah, you want to enjoy it, but you need to get back out of that death zone as soon as you possibly can. So for us, there was no hanging about. It was cold, it was windy. We got our pictures, videos, and then we head straight back down. So yeah, there was no hanging around.
Yeah, yeah, because you obviously said just earlier that climbing a mountain isn't just about physical fitness. I mean, what role did mental fitness
Massive,
play?
massive, yeah. Again, you can be the fittest person in the world, but if you haven't got the mental strength up there, you are not going to make it. Forcing yourself to take another step when you have been climbing for hours, you've not had any sleep, you're in the death zone, you can die at any time. It's one of the most hostile places on earth. It takes a certain kind of mindset and person to keep pushing through pain and suffering, which as mountaineers we kind of joke that that's what we go through, because when you get to the summit it makes it all worth it, and it most definitely did. But you have to go through this time of pushing through all boundaries that you thought possible, and if you've not got it up there, when the going gets tough, you'd likely, right, I can't do it, it's too much, and as well as I have a fear of heights, I'm sure maybe other people had a fear of heights. So it's trying to, especially on the Hillary step, I can't do it. I need to turn back. Very, very narrow, sheer drop down either side, passing dead bodies. Like it really was as mentally a challenge as it was physically.
I still think that's brilliantly. Somebody who's got a fear of heights has climbed the highest mountain in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, I know. But again, I made a deal with myself. It was, crossing the ladders or doing something. 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah.
Don't allow yourself to falter. Even to get to Everest Base Camp, you had to cross a multitude of bridges. One called the Hillary Bridge, which is extremely high. So yeah, I had a little bit of prep before then, but also visualized, and like I said, made that deal with myself. 3, 2, 1, go.
So you're training for K2 now.
Yeah.
So it's which is obviously known as being a bit more dangerous than Everest. So what kind of makes that that climb different? Now, I've got a graphic that you sent through to me, which I'll put on the screen in a minute, which will probably help the viewers visualize a little bit of what you're going to speak about now.
So K2 is the second highest mountain in the world. And whilst it's not the highest, it is less than 300 meters smaller than Everest. So par for par, it's pretty much like climbing Everest, again, height-wise. However, K2 is a completely different breed. It's a lot steeper. It's a lot harder. The weather is harsher, more unpredictable. It's very technical. So it's a climber's mountain. I'm not a climber yet. But you are classed as a climber if you can summit K2. And to give viewers a bit of perspective, the number of summits on Everest is about from individuals, not people that have summited more than once, about 7,500, maybe 8,000 now. With K2, we're talking less than 1,000, maybe just over 800. So it's a very different mountain. It's like Everest on steroids. Which scares me, that the climbing and the steepness of it, because that's obviously going to trigger my breathing more. And I had a really hard time on that in Everest, trying to breathe whilst exerting so much energy when there's so little oxygen in the air. Whilst you have an oxygen mask on, that doesn't bring you down to sea level. It just makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, on the summit, you're talking 33% oxygen. Again, death zone. So you'll see there certain parts of it, the bottleneck as well. Sorry, cat's wanting out again. But she's been meowing the whole time, so hopefully you've not been able to hear that.
No, it's been okay.
Yeah, there's certain parts of it. So the bottleneck at the top is a very dangerous part as well. There's a big, icy serac that you have to cross under, where rock can fall, ice can fall, the whole thing can collapse and has collapsed before. So just before you get to the summit, that's a little treat that you've got to pass. So yeah, it's as with any mountain, it's dangerous, but with this one, it is the steepest, the hardest, and most dangerous mountain in the world, which kind of makes me, why am I doing this again? Well, I say it out loud, but yeah.
I think this picture here, I think, just shows the majesty of the
definitely.
mountain
It's a beautiful mountain. It's a very triangular shaped mountain. And it's easy to get consumed. Well, but look how many people have died doing this and that. But if you focus on that, of how many people had car crashes and died in car crashes, well, you never go. It's what about all the people that did make it? What about people that get in the car every day and they survive? What about people that summit these mountains and survive and make the dreams come true and have amazing stories to tell? So, when I did Everest, people were like, oh, but what of this? What of that? I'm like, but what if I succeed? And what if I now get to sit here, speaking to people like you about it all? So. Yeah, there's definitely risk management involved. I'm going to put in the proper training, like I did for Everest. I have thoroughly researched companies to make sure I'm going with the best company, having the right kit. So there is ways to minimize it.
So you've obviously said about the different challenges that K2 poses over Everest. And I mean, what's your training approach? Is it different this time? Or are you doing anything new physically or mentally? Because I've got a picture to share with the viewers with this one as well.
So rinse and repeat what I did for Everest to get my VO2 max, your body's ability to utilize oxygen and my strength up. But yes, become a better climber. So that is what's called the inaccessible pinnacle. As part of training, I am doing what's called the Cullen's Ridge Traverse, which is over on the Isle of Skye, which involves 22 summits, 11 of them major, including this one, over 2 days. With a bivvy at the top. So bivvying just means you're in your sleeping bag under the stars. So yeah, I mean, as someone that's got a fear of heights, even looking at that absolutely terrifies me. But my mindset became, when I was training for Everest, when I had to, go and do all this high altitude scary things. Well, if I can't do that, I can't do Everest. And that was the goal. So now it's like, well, one, I've done Everest, I can do that. And two, well, if I can't do this, I can't do K2. So by adopting that mindset, doesn't magically make me stronger or fitter, but it enables me to achieve more and push past that fear that encompasses me.
So how do you deal with the fear factor? Does it ever go away?
No. Well, it's funny. I've not always had a fear of heights. It's just been literally the last maybe 10 years. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
it came out of nowhere. Even like skiing, I've gone up chairlifts, all my life, never had a problem. And all of a sudden, I was bricking it on this chairlift. And then got it with my obstacle course racing when I had to climb up things. I'm like, what is this? Like, why? Where's this come from? So, yeah, you know, I find fear actually fascinating as well, because it's all in here, right? It's all your mindset and what you're telling
Hmm.
yourself, and oh my god, I can't do it, I can't do it. Look how high it is. What if this happens? So what if that happens? So what happens when you change that inner dialogue? So yeah, it's all about embracing it, and I don't think we conquer our fear and it ever goes away, but we conquer our mind, which enables us to embrace the fear. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
still very much there. Yeah, but you climbed Everest. Yep, still scared of heights.
I think this is probably the picture that I'm going to put up next is the one that you just spoke about earlier as well, and it kind of falls onto the question I was going to ask you about what you're most excited or nervous about when it comes to K2.
Yeah.
I'll put that one up just now.
Even though it was so
Because this
hard.
gives me the
Yeah,
fear
so
as well when I look at
that
this.
is the bottleneck. So you will see I'm not sure if it's back to front, but up to the left or where I'm looking at, you will see the icy Serac, the famous Serac. This was just as sun was rising. And there's a little line, very narrow line that you have to walk around, which is called the bottleneck. And that is just maybe 300 meters short of the summit. So yeah, very exposed, but I mean, absolutely stunning. But yeah, if you get it wrong, you've got quite a long way to fall. And you just, yeah, it's going to be challenging, but seeing that and visualizing that to see, well, how am I going to cope? It was a bit like on Everest. Well, how are you going to cope when you see dead bodies? Because you are going to see dead bodies. So I'm visualizing it in my head. How am I going to cope? How am I going to respond? What am I going to do with that? So yeah, I use visualization a lot to help me get through things. But I'm most excited. I'm weirdly, as you tend to forget how hard it was. But when I say it was so hard to breathe, I really do mean just to get a single breath, and it was hard. So,
Mhm.
whilst I am very excited to have that, I love challenging myself and seeing what I can push and barriers and what I can achieve. And but at the same time, I'm most nervous about being able to breathe through the hard technical parts and the unpredictable weather and avalanches. There's quite a lot more avalanches on
Right.
K2. And yeah, I just don't, having skied all my life and, having a bit of a fear of imagine being caught in an avalanche, whereas this
Mhm.
is obviously a lot more riskier. Yeah, it makes me nervous. But again, I have to go with the mindset. Okay, well, I'm with the best company. They have spent a lot of money investing in weather. So to be able to, get good weather windows, and it's a bit like my granny say, well, if your time's up, your time's up, right? So if I get taken out of in an avalanche, that's maybe how it's meant to be. But, I'm very much a believer and promoter of not letting fear hold you back. Again, I don't want to get sitting when I'm 80 and saying, oh, I wish I'd done that. Get one shot at
Yeah.
life, and yes, it's risky, but it's managing those risks as effectively as possible.
Because I mean, we're obviously discussing about mental
Yeah.
toughness, and now I want to kind of probably look in a bit more into your own mindset and motivations and mental toughness. I mean, you've built obviously some serious resilience.
Yeah.
Uh, what habits or routines have helped you keep that up? And what I'm going to do here as well, Lee, is I'll share that transformational pic that you sent me through
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So what to have in place? So on the left there, that is me when I was younger, height of my eating disorder. Very big myth that people are always thin when they have eating disorders. I was all ends of the spectrum, very much underweight and overweight as well. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of dark times and demons that I had to silence to, um, get out of that place that I was in. And I, you know, I went to counselors, I went to psychiatrists, I talked about it, I stopped lying, I owned it, and worked through the hard stuff, and talked about it. And as part of that, it was thinking about, right, well, what's my inner dialogue? What is my self-talk like? And this is relevant to everybody. When you wake up in the morning, what do you tell yourself? When you look in the mirror, are you busy beating yourself down, criticizing yourself, or are you building yourself up? So, it was learning to adopt a more positive mindset that, I build myself up. I focus on the positives instead of the negatives. I focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do. Um, and believe that I can do things, build that self-belief. And if you do that, it gives you those building blocks to build that self-belief and that self-confidence. And it's very difficult at first. Okay, well, I'll just do that, Lee. Well, it takes time and it takes practice. And those transformation pictures, were over a number of years. And that picture of me in the middle holding my son, he was only, as you can see, very young at the time. I broke my foot at a European obstacle course racing championship. And that, unfortunately, due to an unfortunate chain of events, including COVID, turned out to be a 4-year foot injury from hell. So if you've ever been injured or sick for any length of time and not been able to do stuff, it's very hard mentally when you can't do things that you want to do, especially when you run a fitness business and you need to be active. And I was in so much pain.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of resilience built through that injury, when I'm crawling on my hands and knees trying to look after my kids. So, overcoming all those darkest times and you crawl my way back up from rock bottom, those setbacks and those obstacles have helped me become the person that I am today. They've helped build the resilience and the strength. But certainly, getting my mindset in place was the most important thing.
So when everything kind of hits the fan, whether it be business issues, physical exhaustion at the top of the world's highest mountain, self-doubt, what is your kind of inner dialogue just to kind of get you going, drive you through
it? Again, it's allowing myself to feel it, but not dwell on it. And I've managed over time the ability to do that quite quickly. Depending on the situation, it might be instant, it might take a couple of hours, it might take, a longer time. But we're all human. Whilst I have a very strong positive mindset now, I still feel all those feelings. I just don't allow myself to dwell on them. And again, going back to exactly the same thing, right, I'm struggling. Let's focus on what I can control, not what I can't. Let's focus on the positives instead of the negatives. Let's build myself up. If I've done that, I can do this. And, whether it's in business or your personal life and relationships, how your relationship with yourself sets the tone for everything. You can have the best qualifications in the world, and but if you wake up each morning and you have no self-belief, you have no self-confidence, and you have no self-worth, you're never going to be successful because you're not going to be able to apply them. So it's really important that we start here. This is where you've got to live the rest of your life, so making sure it's a happy place between your ears is incredibly important.
So if we obviously spoke about it when you were going up Everest, when you were sitting at a point of all that preparation, etc., and then you obviously felt when you were sick. Are you able to go on? What role has had failure played in your own life? Do you embrace it or do you fight it?
Very much embrace it. Failure is absolutely essential to success. It means that you found a way that didn't work, right? Like when, and again, it's how you view failure as well, your perspective on it, viewing it as, well, okay, this is an opportunity to learn and to figure out ways that do work, instead of, oh my God, the world's come tumbling down, I'm a failure, I can't do it. The more we fail and the more we overcome those obstacles and those setbacks, the more resilience we work, the more we learn, the more strength, mental strength we gain. Definitely embrace it. And, as successful as I have been in business, climbing the highest mountain in the world, I will still continue to fail because it is just part of the process. Hopefully it won't be on K2, but if it does, it does.
So what's next for you after K2 then? Is that another summit, a new business project, something completely unexpected?
Well, when people ask me what's after Everest, that was $1 million question. I had actually actively avoided K2. My partner had said, don't be coming back saying you're going to do K2 because of obviously the risks associated with it. I was like,
exactly.
I've not even got my eye on that mountain, no chance. And then it came calling, and I just could not deny how much it was igniting this fire inside of me. So I didn't realize that I was even going to do K2. So I genuinely have no idea how I'm going to feel after doing K2. Because when I came back from Everest, I said, I'm never doing high altitude again. I'm done. Game over. That's it. So I do know, and I wanted, even before I summited Everest, that I want to write a book on Everest and about my journey to get there, because I feel like, others will be able to relate to it, and hopefully I will be able to inspire them from it. So yeah, I definitely want to write a book. It's just writing a book isn't the same as challenging yourself to extreme levels. So to be continued with that. I'm not exactly sure. Watch this space.
I mean, I know that a lot of these expeditions are very expensive as well. So, I mean, I understand that you're looking or seeking sponsorship for your challenges. So, how do people or companies get in touch with you?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, climbing big mountains and doing exciting things costs a lot of money. So, sponsorship is required, but it is, a great way for companies to get involved, particularly, with K2. I will be the first Scot, not even female, the first Scot to successfully do this, making literally history. So yeah, I'm really looking to get, in particular, trusted, but local or Scottish companies, or that want to get involved in this to, be part of it all. If people are interested in being part of it, I think is my email address below here. I can't quite see it.
Put it on just now.
Yeah, drop me an email. I have a sponsorship package with different sponsorship levels, depending, on what may fit your company best. But yeah, just get in touch and we can discuss things.
So, where can people follow your journey, your preparation for K2, and get involved with LDPT?
I will be sharing stuff on LinkedIn, but primarily on my Lee Donald Personal Training Facebook page and my Lee Donald Instagram page. Particularly, I'm a very big fan of stories. So those are, when you click on the little profile picture, I do a lot of stories because it's easier to share a lot there than constantly posting, on a page. So yes, if people would like to come follow my journey and see how it all works out and see how I get on the inaccessible pinnacle, it'd be great to connect.
Oh, superb. Well, one final. I mean, I can't believe we're almost at the end.
Yeah.
Now. I mean, I could have spoken about this for about a good few more hours, shared more pictures, more videos. Because Lee was, very kindly had sent me through quite a lot of pictures and videos to look at. It was fantastic to see, and it's probably inspired me to not climb Everest just yet. I think Benny He's probably my level.
Benny He.
But the final question that I always like to ask our guests on these is, what's the one message that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, I guess I've touched on it quite a number of times. Like, your mindset is your superpower, and it can either work for you or against you. And if you want it to work for you, then learning to build yourself up, thinking about your self-talk, making it more positive, focusing on those positives instead of the negatives, things that you can do instead of you can't, plays a really vital role in your success. Not just in business, but in your personal life as well. So be kind to yourself.
Brilliant. Well, no, thank you, Lee. I mean, I think the one thing that I've certainly taken away from today is that strength doesn't always start in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
Starts in the dark when you're probably at your lowest, and then when the
Definitely.
mountain ahead looks impossible, and quitting feels easy than carrying on. Thank you, Lee, for being our guest.
Apologies for my cat being a diva.
That's all right. I want to wish you all the best in your preparation for K2. I mean, fantastic. And please, if there's anyone watching, company-wise or individuals, please get in touch with Lee. And let's keep in touch with us here at AYP as well. Let us know how you're getting on.
Definitely. Thanks, Ross.
Okay. So that was, I'll just take Lee out there. There we are. That was really inspiring, wasn't it? Lee Donald didn't just build a business, she's built herself. And I think she's turned pain into purpose, setbacks into fuel, and fear into focus. I think that's something that every young professional, I think, can take with them, whether you're climbing the career ladder or literally climbing something like K2. We talk a lot about ambition, success, and hustles, but maybe the most powerful thing you can do is believe in yourself when no one else does, and then get up and keep going again and again. So, wherever you are right now, starting out, burning out, or somewhere in between, remember, the mountain doesn't move, you do. And I think that's my kind of key takeaway from Lee there. So, we've got... I'll put all the usual ticker tape. So if you want to keep an eye out for our next AYP Live via our socials, the next one is already booked in. And if you want to get involved or nominate somebody who's got an inspiring story like Lee, please drop us an email at info@aypgroup.co.uk. Our next AYP event, I will just put up the QR code for you there, is on the 29th of May at the Rev de Cuba, which is a networking a night, and it'll be hosted by the committee from 6:30 till 9 p.m. So please do just click on the QR code on screen to take you straight to our events page to book your free ticket. So with that all in mind, take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you at the next live event. And thank you for watching this. Thanks for tuning in to Aberdeen Young Professionals. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more events. Want to join us in person? Visit www.aypgroup.co.uk to find out what's next. See you there.